Hello, welcome to Tub Talks with Damon. Hey. My special guest today in their tub is Freddy and Jay Freeman at Easton Mountain.
Yay. Hi.
How are you? Thank you so much for being here. This is the first time I've had the great chance to interview two people at the same time.
Ooh, two at once. Wow.
And it's because Easton Mountain has these resources that we're able to do this.
Yay.
I'm so glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm so glad you're here.
Having three people in here is like right on topic.
It is right on topic because we are here for what I think is the world's first Poly Men Who Love Men conference. Am I right? Is this the very first?
Don't know. I don't know.
I guess someone will tell us if it's not correct. But
let's just say it is.
Let's just say it is. Let's just go with it. But I do ask all my guests. I want to ask you both a question that I ask every single guest because I always want to know, what do you like most about your body?
Ooh. Well, this is a question I ask in a workshop that I do.
Okay.
So we know the answers.
Well, what kind of language can I use?
Anything. It's where we're on the internet. You can say
whatever the fuck you want.
Your balls. Okay, you can say your balls. It's YouTube. What do you like about your balls, Freddy?
They have a nice size and weight, and I like the way they hang, and people tell me they're quite spectacular, so
beautiful.
I like that.
Beautiful. Jay, what about you? What do you like most about your body?
I like having a hairy chest and especially a hairy belly.
Uh-huh.
I like that.
What do you like about that?
Well, because I'm not a big guy and I like bigger guys, and I like hairy guys, not exclusively. But it's just cool to not be a bigger guy, but look down and say like, "Oh, I've got a little belly, and it's hairy."
All right.
Because I don't know where the hair came from, because none of my male relatives had any body hair. So, and my brother and I both have it. So who knows?
Do some of the 23. Well, maybe not do the 23andMe.
No, we definitely have the right parents, but
okay.
It's one of those genetic anomalies. So who knows?
And I love to ask that question because I'm always curious to know from all people of all genders, but especially gay men, what people like about their bodies. I think we are so indoctrinated and encultured to say, for people to say what they don't like, or to always go off on something they don't like. So I always like to begin with that question, to really bring that back, because I think there's a lot to celebrate. And I think that's what a lot of you two do here at Easton Mountain. So I want to begin by just asking you, we're going to be talking about a few really, really fun things, but I want to know more about this amazing environment we're in. We are in this warm tub indoors, but there's like beautiful snow and mountains and cliffs all around us
I wish we could pan around and show.
But so how did this come to be? How did this place come to be? How did you find this place? What happened?
Sure, I can tell you. So Easton Mountain is about almost 23 years old. And Jay and I have been here for about 10 years, but it was founded in 2000 by a man named John Stasio. And John was doing men's retreats in the Massachusetts region called A Weekend with Our Brothers. And that stemmed out of him being a body worker during the AIDS epidemic. And so he was giving body work to people who were living with HIV. And then he started to want some sort of gathering for people that was outside the bars. Because at the time, like, what was available to gay men for culture was going to the bars and things like that.
But also they would have to rent like a YMCA to hold their gatherings.
So he used to rent like a YMCA camp to hold these gatherings, and they got kind of popular and really started to create community for gay men that was a little outside of the paradigm of the bars, because he wanted to create deeper connections, because people were dealing with AIDS, and it really stemmed out of that.
Yeah.
Right? So then some people that were going to these started to tell him that, like, you need your own place. So it just so happened that he found this place and got really passionate about the land when he saw it, and, got some people to invest in it, and they opened in 2000. And then shortly after that became a nonprofit. And now today, we run retreats. We have our own programming for Easton Mountain, like this retreat. And a lot of that is geared toward LGBTQ men, but we also do a wide spectrum of events, for rental groups and things like that. Usually people doing body work, Tantra for Gay Men, the Body Electric, and some other groups that cater more towards women. So it's really a center where people can come and do exploratory work and go on retreat and be with like-minded people and really get away from their day-to-day life and be in a place where they can do personal growth workshops, but have fun together and really create community so that we can get deeper, we can learn about ourselves, and part of the biggest reason we do it is to get people in touch with their best selves so that they can go back out into their communities and pay it forward.
Right.
So that we can change the world by helping people discover themselves, discover their potential, and so that they become more of the best self they can be, so they can go out there and be active, be politically active, be community minded.
So it's not just about coming here, having a great experience, and then leaving it here. It's about bringing it with you back into your community, into your energy, your political work.
Yeah, we really encourage that. Yeah.
And another important thing I think to mention is it's not just a business where we hold retreats. There's also a community who lives here. Mm-hmm. So it's, we are all family that live here, depending on how many live here depend on the time of year. But yeah, that's also a magic of this place is living here with, a group of people. So
and the people that live here usually play a big role in the organization.
Yeah.
Jay and I have lived here for 10 years, and we both have roles here. I'm the marketing director. I also do a lot of programming. The general manager lives here, so things like that. So the core team of people who are running the place, administratively, we live here.
Okay. Do we have some jets coming on?
No,
it's just a little mixing of the thing. I don't think it's jets.
Okay.
I don't know.
There's things popping up. That's fine. So, how many people live here, all year round?
It's not.
It varies.
You can't say it depends on the time of year. We have more in the summer because we have long-term, multi-month volunteers who live here for summers usually.
Wow.
But the handful of people that live here full-time all year round, 5 to
maybe
8?
6 or 8.
Yeah.
Wow. And even in the winter.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Wow. So do a lot of groups come here in the winter when?
We have less retreats in the winter, but even in the winter, there's usually one big retreat a month. Mm-hmm. In January is our Bare Your Soul event, which that's how I ended up here. Actually, I should tell you how I ended up here. So I used to do a lot of concerts. I'm a singer-songwriter as well. And I used to do a lot of concerts in the bear community. We used to do something we called Bearapalooza. And it was a collective of musicians who identified as bears. And we would go around to different bear runs and stuff. So it was really kind of steeped in that community. And I loved it. But I also began, toward the later years that I was doing it, to go, okay, well, we're getting together. We're feeling good about our bodies by partying and drinking and dancing and eating and having sex. And that's great. But I wanted more. I wanted to go a little deeper with connection. We're really getting at the essence of who we are and supporting each other. Really, I wanted to create community. So when I a friend of mine knew John, the owner of Easton Mountain, and John said to him, I want to reach out to the bear community. And my friend Kendall said, you need to talk to Freddy. Because, so we ended up having a really small weekend here in 2012 in January called Bear Mountain Weekend. It was maybe 10 people, but it was really the seed. It was the first time that we came here. And I remember talking to John that very first time and saying, I love this place. I want to create a retreat here. And I already came up with the name. It's called Bare Your Soul. And so Jay and I lived in Georgia at the time, and nothing was going on for us in Georgia. So we talked to my mother, and she lived nearby in Ballston Spa. We moved in with her into her basement and started coming to Easton and started to work on helping them with their music festival that they were doing at the time, and just coming to meetings every week and being a part of marketing, and Jay does graphic design. And I ended up working at the front desk, and then later that year, in fall of 2012, we moved in. And I became the front desk manager. And we started Bare Your Soul in the winter of 2013, and it's been going. So Labor Day weekend this year will be the 10-year anniversary event for that Bare Your Soul, and it's really created a really vibrant community of men who come together, and a lot of them come to us with body shame or just low self-esteem, and they're not used to fitting in. And then through this, building a community and having workshops like we do, about body image, giving them conscious touch experiences, talent shows to let them shine. You know, all these things that we do to create a really bonded community of brothers. And it's just grown to the point where now, like, our deepest family members are through the Bare Your Soul community.
Beautiful.
So,
beautiful.
Did I get it all?
Beautiful.
Well, there's a lot more, but, you know, you can only cover so much in this, you know. But
Beautiful. But so when people come here, how do you help them start to learn how to love their body? How do you start to help bears learn how to love?
Well, Jay and I have a workshop that we started for the first Bare Your Soul called Loving Your Bare Body. And the first thing we do in this workshop is go around the room and have everybody say something they don't like about their body and then something that they love about their body. So it was interesting that you started this off with that. So that begins to create a little bit of shared vulnerability verbally, and then we move into doing exercises in inner and outer circles with undressing and like supporting with our hands and caressing and honoring the person in front of us. And so through that series of exercises, then we move into a section where people get to ask for what they want, working in a trio. And then we have
for it like in a massage, or
it's a little bit of a touch exchange, right? And it's not a sex party, but it really honors our erotic self as well. And it's a really beautiful experience that people have loved, and we've taken it on the road too, not just here at Easton Mountain. We've done it in people's homes in different places.
Different bear events around the country.
Different bear events around the country. For many years, we took it to Bear Week in P-Town. And we did like 10 workshops during the week, and so it's really reached a lot of men.
And we've probably done this workshop close to 200 times, maybe?
Yeah, probably.
Whoa.
Yeah. We've touched a lot of naked men.
Wow. And does anybody ever come to you years later and say, you know what, when you helped me in during that workshop?
Absolutely.
We hear the benefits all the time of like...
Totally.
And it's hard to tell people when they come into it, like, the number of people that have told us that this workshop has changed their life, you can't tell somebody that, you know? You just get
I do say in the marketing, like, come and experience what many men have called a life-changing workshop.
Exactly. But you can't tell them, and then you have to wait until 2 hours after the workshop they've taken for 2 hours, then they know what you're talking about, because they feel so different than they did 2 hours before, where they were terrified and like, I'm gonna have to take my clothes off with strangers and touch strangers. What am I gonna, you know? But then 2 hours later, they're just like, oh my God, oh, I get it now, you know? And they feel so accepted and so loved. And we're all in this group cuddle together naked, and it's just it's the most beautiful thing I've done with my life. I can't even imagine that.
Most of the time, for many gay men, especially of my age, I'm 52, and we were taught that if you're naked in a room with other gay men, it's about sex, it's about getting off, and that's wonderful. I mean, we all like that, but it's just so different to be in a well-lit room, like taking off your clothes in a conscious way, in a way that's reverent, in a way that is intentional, and it's scary for some guys. Like some guys will come to the workshop and they go to bathhouses and back rooms all the time, no problem, but this scared the crap out of them. Because it's about really being vulnerable. And it's so hard to be vulnerable in a culture that tells you not to, that they tell you it's weakness. You know, I have a song I wrote called Bare Your Soul, where I say it can be liberating to be vulnerable when you know it's where your true power lies. When we open up to each other, when we show each other that we all have vulnerability, it creates a synergy with other people that, like, we're all vulnerable. We all have this stuff. So putting them in an environment where it's safe to do that, where it's safe to let their guard down a little bit, it really starts to create deeper bonds and understanding between people, you know?
It's amazing. It's amazing. Having now worked as a therapist for most of the last 26 years, I keep seeing we're doing great work on the outside, like, you know, HIV prevention, PrEP and U equals U, and legal protections and all that stuff is good, and all that's good, and more representation in the media is good. But what I'm seeing not doing is what you're describing on a more regular level, is saying, okay, how do we change our minds? How do we then experience our lives and our connections in a deeper, more meaningful way. Because I think the one thing that hasn't changed in 25, 26 years is body dysmorphia. And the common experience of the gays to look in the mirror and constantly look for ways to criticize themselves and try to contort or distort their bodies, sometimes in unhealthy ways, to try to be of approval, to get approval from others. That, to me, has not changed at all. And I would like to see it change.
There's little pockets of change here and there.
But I think a place like this and an experience like that helps set the template for what's available to us. Yeah. Especially now as we're getting older, in a way. I don't know how old you are, but...
48.
Okay.
48?
Oh, great. So I'm 51, you're 48, you're something, 48, you're 50. So we're all kind of approaching this next phase of aging in a way that really has never been done historically before. And I think we're going to be in such a better position to do that if people use the tools and think about the things you're practicing here in terms of our bodies. And there's people here, so there's music, and that's fine. We are in an active environment in the middle of a wonderful resort, so there's going to be people walking in and out. But these ideas you're talking about means that we could have both a lot of external advantages, but the internal advantages for showing up for it. That's what I think is so exciting about
And the interesting learning for me over the years of doing this workshop is that I'll admit I came to this with the experience of being a very large gay man, dealing with being in a large body in gay spaces. So I came at it thinking, well, I'm doing this for other chubby guys. And then what started to happen is I would get men of all different body types coming into this workshop and raising their hand and saying, I'm ashamed. And what it taught me is that, like, my experience is unique, but it's not special, if that makes sense. My experience in my body shape is a unique experience that has certain things about it that only I understand, but there's also a universal, everybody carries stuff about their body. Like, even guys that I look at and who are like the epitome of my type, that I think are like perfect, and how could they ever have a problem with their body?
That's what's great about that thing at the beginning of the workshop where we ask what, like we'll see the people come in and we'll be like, oh my God, why is that guy here? He can't have any problem with his body. He's like perfect. But then to hear him say what he's ashamed of in his own body, and we're just like, this is the equalizing thing at the beginning of the workshop we do, where it's like, nobody's different, everybody's the same, and even the guy that you put on a pedestal that you think is the most hottest person ever, they're like, oh wow, they're struggling in their own way.
Right.
And I love
now, that being said, though, being in a very large body as a gay man is a very unique set of challenges. Doesn't mean other people don't have challenges, but there's something that only people who have walked that path understand.
Can you share an example of that?
It's just when you walk into a gay space, like a typical gay space, and you're in a large body, you can feel invisible. You can feel like
dismissed.
You would think that you'd be ridiculed, but it's actually the opposite. It's that you don't even show up on people's radar because there's a paradigm of like what's attractive. I mean, I don't want to say that this is all the time, like for everybody, but it's, and maybe a lot of it for me is left over from the 90s, because when I was in my early 20s or mid 20s in the 90s in New York City, being new to New York City, I mean, I was maybe 270 pounds or something.
No, less than that.
Yeah, no, less than
210,
that.
220.
Yeah, he's right. And I would still like be looked at, like walk into Splash Bar, and like people would treat me like leper.
How do you deal with that?
Yeah, at the time, how did you?
Well, there's many different stages of dealing with that throughout one's lifetime. At the time, it was pretty traumatic for me, because I would really, literally be in spaces, like backroom spaces, where people would push me away and say, "Not you." So now I understand as a 52-year-old man that was about them. But when I was 23,
what a shitty way! What a shitty way to be to somebody.
You know,
oh my God.
At the time, it was pretty traumatic, and it really shaped my experiences. You know, growing into my adulthood as a young person. But The plus side of it is I wouldn't be doing the work I'm doing today if I hadn't had those experiences.
Yeah.
So now I'm very sensitive to making sure that the people on the margins have a place to go so that they know that they're included and that they don't internalize this stuff to the point that I did that took me so long to get over. So now I have a chance to say, wait, you don't have to buy into that. You don't have to eat that and swallow it. You can look at yourself in a different way, you know.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you for sharing that. And again, I love that informed the safe kind of haven you've created and are having here at Easton Mountain, that people can experience being open, being vulnerable, being naked, being playful, without having to go through that. And again, as you said earlier, like kind of how do you incorporate and integrate this into your day-to-day life?
And even in an environment like this, I can't make sure that that kind of either internal or external judgment won't show up here. But at least we can give you tools to deal with it. And tools to deal with it.
Thank you.
And then, you know, that's just our bear event, but like Easton Mountain does programming throughout the year for all different kinds of people and meeting people wherever they're at. You know, so we have a kink event. It's all about BDSM. We have our freedom camp in the summer. We have our summer splash events. So we reaching out to different parts of the queer community and giving them all a space to kind of work through their stuff and be their best self.
Wow.
And then this inaugural event.
Yeah, so let's talk also about what this weekend, what you've created here and the space you've created here. So we are at, again, I'd say the world's first, challenge me if I'm wrong, but the world's first Poly Men Who Love Men conference. And now the two of you have a lot to say on the matter, and the two of you have been sharing a lot this weekend and helping people a lot. Let's talk about your relationship. May I ask about these things?
Sure. I'll let Jay start.
Okay.
Oh, God, well, specific question.
So, first of all, how did you meet Freddy? Let's go back a little bit.
The short story is we met online. We met on Yahoo Messenger in the bear chat room. Yep.
Okay, so you met, you connected.
And I was living in Mississippi, and he was living in New York City.
That's quite a...
Isn't that? And we actually are born with the same last name.
Oh, I didn't realize that was your born. I knew you had the same last name, but I didn't realize you had the same born.
We already did.
And
Freeman.
And everybody says, "Are you sure you're not related?" Like, no, we're not.
I'd be fine if we were, but we're not. No, and that's part of how we connected was we found out while we were cam buddies for a little bit and chat buddies, and we were getting closer and closer on Yahoo Messenger, on cam sometimes, and we found out that we had the same last name and blah blah blah. And then he was like, "Yeah, and I'm a singer-songwriter, and I wrote a song about my last name called Freeman." And he sent it to me, and I'm a huge music lover, and he sent it to me and started sending me all of his music, and I was just hooked, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm meeting this live in person, well, not in person, but a real musician who's a songwriter, and his music really speaks to me and it's amazing. And I have the same last name too, and I appreciate everything in this song because it's my name too. His name is my name too.
Yeah.
And so, he was getting out of a relationship.
So why not get married? You don't have to change anything.
He was in a relationship, as was I. We were both dealing with wanting to get out of both of those relationships.
Yeah.
He was tired of being in New York City. I was tired of being in Mississippi. And we just got closer and closer, And so then there happened to be one of Freddie's Bear music events in Nashville, Tennessee, which was 5 hours north of where I was in Mississippi. So I sure as hell wasn't going to let him get that close and not go meet him at that Bear event. And that's when we decided, when we met in person at that Bear event in Nashville, that was going to be our anniversary date. And it's been 18 years since then. So that's the shortest time.
We've been on quite a journey.
A major journey. Oh my God! Yeah.
18 years. I can't believe it, Jay. You were a kid. You were like 20.
I was 29.
What do you remember about him at the time?
I still had a little southern accent.
He did have a little bit of southern accent, and he was so cute. He was the cutest thing.
He was so cute.
Hairy and short. Yeah, and we just started nerding out over music together right away,
But we also nurtured each other because we were both dealing with getting out of relationships that we were pretty unsatisfied in, and so we started talking every day and even calling on the phone every day, and so it just was natural. We just got that close, and then we were like, this is obviously something that's going to last, and we need to get. It was just
So it was still long distance for a little while.
a little while,
while.
yeah,
And then-
like 6 months. Yeah,
Okay.
And then I chose to move down to Tupelo, Mississippi.
Okay, from New York City.
Yeah.
just to transition.
So that we could start looking for an apartment and jobs in Nashville and move to Nashville.
Okay.
because we had just established a little bear community there because of this bear event we went to. So we're like, well, we have no other fucking place we want to go. Let's start over in Nashville. So sure, why not?
Wow.
We did that, yeah.
Okay. So then, at what point did you decide to get legally married?
Well, when we moved to New York State, because at the time that we got married, it was only legal in a few states. So we moved to New York State in 2012.
Okay.
God, that was a
And we got married. We got married at the center in New York City because it was also the 10th anniversary of Bearpalooza.
And so we had this big weekend bash.
Yeah, we had this, like, we married the two things together.
And so we decided that Sunday of that weekend, let's just get married at the LGBT Center, you know.
Okay.
Let's just get married at the LGBT Center with the fabulous Reverend Yolanda as our minister, and all of our musical family and friends are already here. So we've got already a crowd for the wedding. So it just made sense to us, you know.
So was marriage kind of always in the part of your mind as a possibility,
I
or
never really thought about it. I don't think I did.
You know, honestly, Damon, when I was a kid, or when I was a man in my young 20s, I never imagined that I'd live to see the day that gay people could get married.
Same.
It just never even occurred to me.
Same.
Yeah.
That's like crazy talk.
Yeah.
So it's still amazing to me that we're married, you know, and it's unfortunate that now we're like under threat again, and like we have to be vigilant and become activists again.
Yeah.
But that's
where
we got
we're at.
to do it.
Yeah.
We got to defend this shit, right?
Yeah.
But we know it's the last gasping breaths of that dying old guard.
Right.
You know.
Okay, so
Ultimately.
2012 you get married.
Yeah.
Right.
And at the time, was there discussion about we're going to be monogamous, or we're going to be
No.
open, or we're going to
Oh,
be
we
like,
were
what was the agreement?
It doesn't have to do with marriage. We were open from the very beginning of our
Okay.
relationship, pretty much. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a regular way of discussing negotiations, agreements, compromises about
Well, it
sexual-
was an evolution because in the beginning, it was more like he insisted on being open because he had never really had a chance to explore.
By the time Freddie and I got together, I had maybe slept with 5 men, and I was 29. So I was like, I just went to therapy, and I realized why I was depressed is because I've never had that candy store play period. So like, I'm
Never had
sorry,
slut
Freddie.
phase.
I love you. I need us to be open pretty much from the beginning. So you know.
And I had just come from an open relationship, but I think at the time I was more monogamy minded with him. And so we navigated that in the beginning, and there was a lot of stops and starts. There was a lot of rules.
like what?
I was just thinking that we
I
had
had
rules.
You know what? One of the rules was no repeats.
No repeats. No spending the night.
Right.
Safe sex.
Right. No falling in love.
No
like,
fun. Yeah.
Which is why early on, like, he had a repeat and had started seeing him, like, a lot. And we had a big to-do about it. Remember, it was Charlie.
Oh,
And
wow.
we had a big to-do about it. So that's just part of the evolution, right? So we keep navigating that, how we are open together. And then we have no problem talking about the fact that after 18 years, like, the nature of our relationship has changed a lot. Like, we used to be very sexual, very romantic, very hot and heavy in that way. And our relationship now is like, we've been together a long time. And our relationship now is more about the shared history we built together, the projects that we're doing, like these things as partners, you know, that we're doing at Easton.
The ways we connect that we only connect with each other, that we don't connect with it, which is because of the longevity and the kind of best friend nature that we have together. So that's incredibly valuable to me. You know?
So now then, after 18 years, you're able to continue to stay together and have space for
Right.
significant emotional relationships.
Not just other play.
Right,
but
not
like
just play
that,
partners,
right.
but
Romantic
partners.
extramarital romantic relationships. Yeah.
Okay, so walk me through then how that came about. And I love earlier you were saying that, okay, even though we were open, sometimes agreements were made, they weren't always kept to the letter, because I think that is usually how this happens.
But at the same time, like when
Yeah.
those rules kind of started dissolving, because I think we didn't feel the need to like hang on to those rules as much. But
Right.
but also like even from the early on, I think we were feeling every once in a while having some close feelings for people that, you know, we weren't just going and hooking up and having sex. Sometimes they were close friends that were part of us, and like we would play with them sometimes. Right. So, and we didn't have a word for it then. It was just still what our open relationship was.
Yeah.
Right.
But then, like, I think I was the first one, pretty much, that like I had been seeing somebody that I had been chatting with, and we had met several times, and then after we did a workshop at somebody's house in Connecticut in like 2018, I realized we were leaving, and I was like, oh shit, I'm in love with them. And we were saying goodbye, and I said to him, I got to tell you something. I just realized I'm in love with you. And he said, you know what? I'm in love with you too. And so I was like, oh God, is this the first time where one of us officially has somebody we can officially call an extramarital boyfriend?
Well, there was one person for me that was kind of short-lived.
Right, and we also had some dalliances with having a third boyfriend. Both of those
didn't work for us.
Both of those flamed out spectacularly because that guy couldn't handle it.
Oh. Well, because we found that like both times that we had a third person that we were both dating, there was a constant like, oh, he's more into you, and it just turns out that like both of these guys were more into him.
But also they weren't emotionally
they weren't both emotionally ready to handle it. So
yeah.
I think we've evolved to the point now where we don't want that. We don't want to share a relationship with somebody else. Mm-hmm. We're much more happy where things are now. And we both have significant others.
Right.
Like, both of our boyfriends are here right now.
Yes. And I met them both, and they're both wonderful.
The camera more?
Well, I don't believe it should, but like, you certainly could, as long as you're comfortable.
I think
I've just been talking to Damon.
Yeah, you can be talking about. So I want to walk through this though a little more. So 2018, you realize I am really in love with this guy, and then you do what? What did you like? Did you immediately
nothing
tell
changed.
Freddy?
Nothing
like,
changed.
Did you share that?
No, he knew that I was seeing this guy a bit, and he was part of our Bear family, and we would see him at things.
But did you know that it had progressed emotionally to a deeper place?
Yes, I did. But the interesting thing about you asking about this is I don't ever remember like set points where things. It just sort of all just evolved slowly.
Yeah, it did.
Well, how did that feel for you? To see this or to get a sense that Jay was experiencing these
at the time it didn't really bother me or register me. I don't know if that was before I started seeing Mike.
It was, yes, it was.
It was, okay.
Not long before, but yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, because I had close people that I was close to and that I had. Yeah. I had friends with benefits that I would see once in a while. So I was just focusing on those and like, you know, Jay had this person and we see it. It's not like he saw him all that much. Like he saw him every couple months. And,
But again, we didn't have these signposts of like markers in our relationship of evolving. You know, we just a lot of it just kind of naturally flowed into another situation, and so you know.
Well, I think the thing that I get asked, and the thing people watching this are going to ask, is how are they able to do that without being devastated when their husband has feelings? Either like feelings or serious in love feelings for another person.
That's exactly why we're having this retreat, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think a lot of people need help with that.
Yeah, and it's something like we've been discussing all day today, and it's like there's a lot.
Yes, but the people watching this weren't there.
Right, there's a lot of. Right, that's what I'm saying. Is there's a lot of answers.
Yeah.
You could really dig deep into this question, but in a nutshell, jealousy is something that. I used to think, like, when I was monogamous, you're jealous, like somebody's cheating, things are over. It's the end, it's rupturing something. Yeah. But I don't view it that way now. Like, jealous feelings are about insecurity. They're about a fear of losing something, a fear of losing intimacy. They're about unmet needs. And when we start to talk about what's really underneath jealousy, underneath the desire to possess and control, then if we start to dig underneath at what our unmet needs are, maybe we could, like, for example, like if I have a partner that's like going out a lot during the week and with their other partner and I get jealous, well, if we talk about it, maybe that's just that I'm feeling a little neglected and I need a little bit more special time and I need to ask for that.
Using your words.
Right. So it becomes about how are we communicating, how are we negotiating one another's needs in a way that's not too codependent, in a way that's healthy. And there's a variety of ways to do that. And there's that's why it's good to have community who is practicing the same thing, who has shared vocabulary, people you can get inspiration from, people you can lean on. And then also this word that we use in poly circles called compersion. And compersion is when you're happy that your partner is getting joy and happiness even if you're not the direct cause of it. And so when you're mindful of this word and you know that it's a real thing, for me anyway, then I try to aspire to it, like even if it's challenging. And like I realize now that if I'm not having compersion for my partners, it's about something that I need to ask for. It's about something that I'm not dealing with. And those are real emotions, and I can ask my partners for help with that, but they're not obligated to like bend to every feeling I have and like give up their autonomy either. It's a, you know, my boyfriend Mike and I will deal with this a lot more than Jay and I will, because Jay and I are not sexual romantic anymore. So Mike and I will navigate things like being here, like there's a playroom here, like do we want to go to the playroom, like what's the priority, do you need me to stay with you, am I going to go with other people, and we just sort of feel it out from, and then we tell each other what we can and can't do to help each other with our jealous feelings. And then just go from there. But like,
so with Mike, with your other partner, there is some jealousy as well.
Oh, jealousy, I think, is, we've been talking about today, it's not really an emotion, it's more of an impulse or a reaction, right? But jealousy is just something that happens as a human being. It doesn't mean something's over, there's a huge problem. It just means...
It doesn't mean anyone did anything wrong or fucked up.
Exactly,
right. Yeah.
It just means, wow, my jealousy's getting triggered. What's going on here? Like, you know, what can I ask for to feel better? What can I do for myself to feel better? What kind of thing can we set up so that we both feel a little bit more comfortable and safe?
And I'm just learning this weekend, because my boyfriend is here too, and I've been seeing him less time than Freddie's been seeing his, maybe like a year and a half now, and I'm learning some things about him this weekend about like, oh, I didn't know that he had, especially early on with us, that he had some jealousy and some insecurity, you know, about me seeing other people or whatever, but I don't talk about who I want to, you know, I'm not big into talking about who else I'm playing with or want to go spend time with. I don't like making any partner feel that way, or a friend either. But yeah, like I just like we're still new enough that we're kind of navigating that slightly right now, you know. So, you know, I'm like I'm hoping it's opening up some, you know, new channels of discussion with him, just like, you know, and we're going to work on that today actually, like, because I have an opportunity and like he's going to be doing something else. I'm like, well, we'll see how that goes and see how he feels and whatever, you know.
And that's amazing. I love the way you both are just so very clear and matter of fact about that, and able with each other in the room to talk about how this marriage is not a source of sexual or, how did you say, romantic. Again, like, I think sometimes even I get surprised, or I think people hear this, like, this is a married couple who can share these things so openly with each other.
Yeah, totally.
Do either one of you ever have a reaction, or is there any part of you today that still feels like, oh, jealous, or oh, this is bad, or oh, I feel sad?
I don't think so, because for one, it goes into the compersion thing, I think, because I adore Freddie's boyfriend, Mike, and he is such a part of my family. And I also know how much Freddie gets from him, and how good he is for my husband, and how he gives things to my husband, or my husband gets things from him that he can't get as much or as well from me. And I love knowing, and it takes some, you know, takes some heat off of me. I'm like, oh, thank God Mike can give him that. Oh, you know, and I love that. And it's part of why I love Mike. He's an amazing, wonderful, generous man, and you know, and same for my boyfriend Marco. Like, when Marco comes to visit me and Freddie, pardon me if I speak to you for you, but you say this all the time, like Marco and the three of us watching TV together, and just Marco and I just cuddling on a bed and watching the video, and Marco being on his phone and Freddie watching from his bed, you know, and talking about things. It's just very much a family environment. It's a very
Beautiful.
It's a beautifully connecting family environment for all four of us, and it's probably an abnormal example. I mean, like, I don't know, maybe it is, but we're so incredibly lucky that we have fallen into this comfort with this family.
I mean, I don't know if it's abnormal, but I think about how this
Atypical.
usually plays out in the monogamous world.
Yeah.
That when two people in a marriage come to a point where they're no longer connecting sexually or romantic, at least in the straight world, what they almost always do is start to think about separation and divorce.
Yeah.
And they don't think about, all right, what are the options available to us now?
drives me
Or
How
they just
can we
live in a
create
sexless
family?
marriage.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then so it's a sexless marriage, and then one
Right.
person might experience sexual joy and pleasure outside the marriage, and now it becomes a matter of them cheating,
Right.
that person being a horrible person.
It doesn't matter that we've been married and best friends for 40 years. You
Yeah.
cheated once, it's over.
Right.
That
Right,
best
yeah,
friendship
right.
is over.
And as a
now.
marriage
Drives
therapist,
me
that still
insane.
drives me insane
Drives
too,
me
because
insane.
people are losing out, and this is what they're losing out on, is this opportunity to create family and friendship and allyship, and
Yeah,
to realize,
yeah.
hey, here's somebody in this world who has my back, who loves me,
Yeah,
who
yeah.
will care, who will bail me out of jail, who will, I still, one of my exes is still my emergency contact, and
Yeah,
he's always
yeah.
like, I know he'll be there for me. If I need him, he'll be there for me.
Totally.
So instead of
Yeah.
casting this person out of my life, we've created a relationship in a very different way, and for me, a much more meaningful, sustainable way. And I wish more people would think about that, and maybe watching this show and thinking about coming to a Poly Men Who Love Men conference and here in the future.
Yeah, totally.
We'll learn more about that.
But I also see a viewer maybe having a question like, so what is your marriage like then? What is your what is your actual connection after 18 years and you've got separate boyfriends? What is your actual connection still between you? You know?
And the answer?
Well, I was so glad to think about it today in your talk because it made me think about like when after Freddie goes to visit Mike and then he comes back home, we get right back into talking about our nerdy shit. Like we're getting excited about a show and talking like really like only the two of us can talk.
I mean, we get into it. We're like, did you remember that scene? And she was so emotional.
Or did you hear this new song by this artist that we love, you know? And then we get talking, and we don't just do that. We talk about, because we're both musicians, and we start talking about, did you hear that part of that song? Or did you feel the emotion, what's going on in this song, or whatever? And so we still have managed to hold on to that best friend quality that we have, and the ways that we connect with each other that we cannot connect with anybody else. Mm. And Freddie can say, like, you know, I love Mike and I love spending time with him, but when I come home, I have this connection with you that I don't have with him. And I've got the same thing, you know, and I value that so much.
In fact, you asked if we, like, got jealous about stuff. What we get jealous about now is, like, you watched that with Mike?
You watched that already? Oh, man.
You watched that music show,
Right.
the other one?
Yeah.
That's beautiful. You know, earlier Freddie was talking about compersion. I wondered, can you explain for yourself what compersion is, or was that just an example of like...
Well, no, what I did with talking about how much I love Mike and how much I value Mike because of what he gives to Freddie. That's the compersion.
That's compersion.
Yeah.
For me, that's the compersion that I have.
Beautiful.
And like I said, I love, like, when Marco comes to visit and, you know, we're living in one of the rooms here with 2 double beds, so they'll be on one bed and I'll be on the other bed. We're all just watching TV and
there's nothing awkward.
it feels fine. And then if they want to be intimate, they go to another room.
But it feels so much like family. More than I remember feeling in our marriage. I don't mean marriage to each other, but I mean this poly family feels more like a family than we've ever felt a poly family before. And it still blows my mind.
And it also speaks to the way in which, like, throughout history, like, queer people have always found, like, their own ways to create family.
Yes. Chosen family, bitches.
And I love my biological family, but, like, I think as queer people, when we grow up, especially men our age, as good as our families were to us and, like, how much they tried, in the paradigm of the culture, we always still felt outside, like, other from our birth families, right? A lot of us. So then we learn to create family. And this is just another way that we're creating our own family.
Beautiful.
You know?
I love that. And also, given the times that we grew up in, especially in New York City, we've lost too many people to just cast aside someone who we love in our lives who's still alive.
Right.
It's like it makes no sense to me given we've lost so many people.
Right,
There's so many people we've loved who have passed. why would you willingly cast out someone or separate from someone who you love while they're still alive and available for connecting with you? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
Because they shared their body with someone else. Oh
right.
my God.
Right.
Must be over. Oh, darn.
Right. So I wish, and maybe these interviews and these conversations will help people, all people, think about how they can perceive connections in a different way throughout the lifespan. Again, I know this is a harder sell in the straight community because they still believe in until death do us part, or you burn, or it's like waiting to exhale, you burn the house.
But I love seeing a straight family or a straight couple that they're poly and they've got boyfriends and they've got girlfriends.
Yeah, there's a straight poly community.
There is, and I love seeing that.
And in New York City, there's quite a large.
But also, I love this cultural time because poly is becoming more of the cultural. It's becoming more out in the cultural landscape. Yes. So I'm loving culture, how culture changes over my lifetime. I'm like, like with the PrEP thing, like, oh my God, HIV is so much more manageable now. Different types of relationship styles are so much more, visible now, and I'm loving seeing that. Yeah.
Boxes are being exploded all over the place.
Fuck those boxes.
Right.
We live in a time that can be really scary because of how volatile everything is with our, our culture. But at the same time, that's because everything is like bursting and changing, and then there's reaction to that, and so parts of it are scary, but it's also really exciting. It is.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm doing these Tub Talks and really thinking about, all right, what do we learn even from the painful things happening? Right. How do we learn? How do we grow? Because like you said, we're already on that track as a culture, as challenging poly, as we're getting older and living longer lives and more than traditional, most marriages end in divorce. Does it make sense to keep casting people out, or does it make more sense as we get older to grow our families, to see if there's a way to continue to connect, as the two of you are showing, and role modeling, to be allies, to be friends, to nerd out, and to create these spaces where people can feel accepted and learn some tools.
Totally.
Is there anything I haven't asked you? I want to start with you. Is there anything I haven't asked about poly or Easton Mountain or your life that you would want to share or want people to understand about what we're talking about today?
I'm not without being prompted to ask specific things, but I'm amazed how we've covered so much, because again, like Freddie said, we've been on a hell of a journey for 18 years. We have done so much and gone so many places, experienced so much. It's amazing to distill it into this where we are now and how beautiful and fulfilling it is, especially considering like how much we've lost lately. We've had this tragedy in our lives, and I've lost a lot of loves and a lot of really important love connections, but I have trauma from that, but I'm shocked that I'm feeling so healthy right now, and I'm feeling so beautiful in this thing that we've got, in this brand new retreat that we're trying this weekend. It's so fulfilling and beautiful, and the discussions just give me this tremble. There's this tremble thing that I get sometimes when people are really communicating and really connecting, and I'm just feeling everything's so fulfilling and beautiful right now. I'm like, I can't believe things feel so good, because things have been shitty for the last 4 months.
Yes. Or do you feel like or do you want to just give an overview of what the tragedy has been?
Well, we had a house fire. We had a house fire on November 16th. Yeah. It didn't burn the house down, but it kind of ruined everything in the house. Both of our cats died in the fire, and that's the trauma that I've been dealing with, especially. Still need a few more big cries over that. Again, like I say to everybody, when you have a crisis, I would highly recommend living at a retreat center when there's a crisis, because it is the best place to be, because you've got shelter, you've got food, you've got a kitchen, you've got a community, you've got shelter, you've got a hot tub.
And you've got family.
You've got family.
And that's, I think, really, so you're saying like having this family. Helps.
It's
so important.
my God, it helps so much
when dealing with trauma and tragedy.
And it's funny because I thought the worst trauma was the beginning of 2021 when I lost 4 romantic relationships in the course of 3 months. It was fucking devastated, I'm past that now, and I'm just like, wow, and I've had this, so I'm just I'm thrilled that I'm feeling good, and that we're feeling good, and that we're feeling healthy, and things are going well, so,
Beautiful. Freddie, same question. Anything that I haven't asked that you want people to know about or understand about you or Easton Mountain?
Well, what I'd like to share with the viewers is if there's anything in this world that you have questions about or that you think is weird, whether it be poly relationships or kink BDSM or gay people or trans people or whatever, like, find out. Ask questions. Don't make assumptions. Like, talk to people who are living these lives.
Embrace your ignorance.
And find out what it's really about. Because so many people make assumptions about what things are about when they don't really understand them. So, like, look it up. Ask questions. Like, talk to people who live it. Because, like, especially even, like, we have a BDSM element to this workshop. And what we talk about with that is, like, so many people look at that lifestyle. They go, oh my God, it's like they're hurting each other. Like, and if you really dive into it, there's a lot of family going on in those communities. It's a lot about nurture and negotiation and being honest and contracts and taking care of each other. And so I'm just using that as an example. Like, if you don't understand something, you're only seeing the surface. Yeah. So find out, ask questions, be curious.
Curious, discover. That's always my thing in aging is that, and that has nothing to do with chronological age, but just being in the process of discovery, willing to learn, willing to grow. For the two of you, willing to try doing something here that you've never done before, to experiment and discover and see. All right, what is this, and what do we learn from this? And that to me is what I find so refreshing. In this place and in what you're saying. So don't assume, learn, ask questions.
Yeah, stay curious.
Or stay curious and grow or show up.
Yeah.
You know, there's some things you can ask questions and learn about and other things you're not going to know until you show up.
And you look at the calendar for Easton Mountain programming and see if there's something that strikes your interest. And come learn about it.
Absolutely. You know? So summer is right upon us. We are coming up on summer.
Summer's
probably going to air in April.
Oh, wow.
And there's lots of stuff going on this summer.
We have a great introductory event for men coming at the end of April called Spring Awakening. And it's just a really beautiful, generic, like, intro to being here and having fun and being in community and having fun with other guys.
Nothing like not much for heavy stuff.
It's just it'll give you a taste of some of these kind of personal growth workshops and stuff, but it's a great toe in the water.
So. Get together,
Wow, maybe more than a toe.
Yeah,
maybe the whole
get your whole self in the water, baby.
And we have an outdoor pool, which is amazing in the summer. So.
Great. So summer's a great time to see what can I discover, what can I learn. At least show up, and as I often say, and a lot of my guests say, gather the data for yourself. Just if you don't like it, you don't have to do it. But at least show up and learn and see, all right, do I like this or not?
Yeah. Collect the data. Yeah. Take a look at the data, analyze it.
Yeah.
It reminds me of doing LSD in college. I'm like, I'm not going to do this without doing a hell of a lot of research on this shit.
Perfect. All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you for inviting me here, inviting me to this beautiful place,
amazing.
Letting me talk with you in the tub. And I just look forward to staying on this journey with you and seeing what we discover along the way. And for your open and the way you're both being so open and vulnerable here and during the conference, I know is helping others.
Thank you.
So thank you both. If you like this interview, subscribe. Just subscribe. It's free.
Hit the button.
Subscribe.
Right there.
Hit the button. And follow Easton Mountain. All the links will be right below this interview on YouTube. So Easton Mountain, do you have personal links where you want people to follow you or anything? Or Easton Mountain just the best?
We can put some of my social contacts in there. I'm a friendly guy. You can ask me questions, DM
and
me,
he's
whatever.
a fucking fantastic musician with 4 albums.
Oh my God. So if you give me the link, I'll put it right down low so people can hear your music.
Totally. Yeah.
All right, everybody. Talk about this with your friends, in your tubs, wherever you have discussions with your friends. Let's just keep learning and discovering.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yay.